It is Wednesday, November 18th, 2020, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well today. It's been a very busy day, and you heard our show yesterday. It's hectic what's going on across the country with Donald Trump's campaign filing these frivolous lawsuits. We see also that we've hit the 250,000 death mark when it comes to coronavirus cases in the U.S. And there's still no national plan. Coronavirus is surging in basically all 50 states, as we reported yesterday. Then also last night, all hell broke loose with the Wayne County Board of Canvassers. This made the national news. We were on top of this story last night, right here on 910 AM the Superstation. As the whole story was unfolding, we were breaking it down for you. And there was a press conference today held by Reverend Wendell Anthony, president of the Detroit chapter of the NAACP, and Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan. Detroit Free Press has good coverage on this. WXYZ Channel 7 has good coverage on this as well. We shared the also Fox 2 News. WXYZ.com has an article from Tuesday, November 17th, 2020, updated Wednesday, November 18th, 2020 at 5:57 p.m. Wayne County Board of Canvassers changes course, unanimously votes to certify election results. Wayne County Board of Canvassers changes course, unanimously votes to certify election results. This made national news Tuesday evening, and Monica Palmer and Bill Hartman, and this whole story was on full blast on MSNBC last night, Tuesday, and the 8 o'clock hour, All In with Chris Hayes, and also on the Rachel Maddow show. It was on full blast. On the Rachel Maddow show, Ali Velshi was sitting in for Rachel on Tuesday night. Ali Velshi had Michigan State Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist on, but he also had Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State, for the state of Michigan. We're going to share a clip of that interview that Ali Velshi did with Jocelyn Benson. Then also we have an excerpt of the press conference that took place today. This has made national news. This is the Trump campaign continuing to target and trying to delegitimize the votes of African Americans in Detroit, in Atlanta, in Philadelphia, in Milwaukee, in Pittsburgh. They are continuously trying to delegitimize the votes of African Americans. And you wonder why African Americans don't want to be Republicans. Okay, it's not that we're in love with Democrats, and many African Americans don't belong to the Democratic Party. They may vote for Democrats, but don't belong to the Democratic Party. But things like this is why many African Americans are saying, wait a second, this is why they feel under attack by Republicans and don't want to vote for Republicans oftentimes, because a lot of the policies of Republicans don't line up best with our interests. If you actually understand history and you understand politics. Now, if you don't understand history and politics and you fall for nonsense from people like Candace Owens because you're ignorant of history, well, then you fall for stuff like that. But people like Candace Owens and a lot of these black conservatives and the Angela Stantons, things like this, many of them have been very quiet on this issue. I wonder why. Many of them have been very quiet on this issue. I wonder why. So we're going to talk about this on today's show. Black votes under attack in Detroit as GOP threatened not to certify votes, but changed mind because of outrage. There was outrage. There were protests last night. Okay, there was a Zoom call. The Board of Canvassers, they were meeting on a Zoom call, and citizens were weighing in on this. And I'm telling you, the wrath of God was about to come down on these people. They don't know what they're dealing with. Okay, the blood of our ancestors is on the vote. All right, so you don't understand what you're playing with. So we'll talk some about that, and then Hate crimes are surging in the U.S. Well, we've seen some hate crimes here uh, during this election. What's taking place? I consider what's taking place right now a hate crime. I can try to delegitimize the votes of African Americans. I consider that a hate crime. Okay, so we'll talk about that, and then I was looking at the updates. We're going to deal with some updates on what's going on with the presidential election results and some of these frivolous lawsuits being filed. We talked about this on the show yesterday. And then the lack of a transition that's taking place also, because because of the lack of transition that's taking place. But I was looking at the updates from the Washington Post, and they have this update. Trump, this was updated 7:22 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. Trump asks judge to let Pennsylvania legislature pick presidential electors. Trump asks judge to let Pennsylvania legislature pick presidential electors. Once again, this is an attempt to delegitimize the votes of African Americans and white people and Hispanics, things like this. This is in the state of Pennsylvania. Okay, it continues. That Donald Trump has lost Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is 20 electoral college votes, if I remember correctly, and they're trying to delegitimize it again and steal it in the electoral college, trying to steal this election in the electoral college once again. Okay, so we're going to give you an update on what's taking place with that, because that story came out late this evening. All right, so we'll deal with those topics, and let me see. We'll deal with those topics, and then also today the U.S. has surpassed 250,000 coronavirus deaths. Still no national plan to deal with coronavirus. One is not going to come from Trump. 11.4 million cases. It took 100 days to go from 0 cases to 1 million. It took 6 days to go from 10 million cases to 11 million cases. It took 100 days to go from 0 cases to the first million in the U.S. Then it took 2 weeks to go from 8 million cases to 9 million cases. It took 10 days to go from 9 million cases to 10 million cases. And it took 6 days to go from 10 million cases to 11 million cases. Now, why is that? Because the infection is spreading much faster. The infection is spreading much faster. This is what I've been warning people about. We're at that critical point. This is what I've been warning people about. Coronavirus is surging in all 50 states, as we reported to you last night. And Thanksgiving is not here yet. Thanksgiving is not here yet. The hospitals are starting to be overwhelmed. Thanksgiving is not here yet. When Thanksgiving comes and people are traveling against the advice of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and people are traveling, going to people's houses, eating out of dishes of food that's being passed around, what do you think is going to happen then? We haven't seen the worst of it yet. We have not seen the worst of it yet. This is the worst it's been so far, but we haven't seen the worst yet that's coming. Wait till winter comes and wait till Christmas comes. So this is why we have to protect ourselves. This is why we have to take precautions. This is why you can't go over people's houses for Thanksgiving. And it's really, people are being advised by the CDC not to travel for Thanksgiving, not to travel out of state. That's dangerous. You could be traveling to hot spots and then bringing that back home to your family. That's dangerous. You better have, all I want to do is zoom. and a boom boom. You better have Thanksgiving through Zoom. Have it through Facebook Instant Messenger. Have it through Facebook video chat. I mean, for people that live outside of your household. Okay, trying to travel and go see grandmom and granddad out of state. That may be their last Thanksgiving for real. That's not a good idea. I don't care what Dr. Scott Atlas says, who is a neuroradiologist. Okay, no, all the credible experts are saying don't travel. No, don't do that. So we'll deal with that on today's show. All right. Now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. You can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, and also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. Okay. So that really helps out because we're here 6 days a week now instead of 1 day a week. Starting October 12th, we're here Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time. We're still on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're still on Sundays, but we're here 6 days a week now instead of 1 day a week. So that helps out when you donate through PayPal or Cash App. And then also all my DVD lectures are available at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com as well. All right. I want to go to this first clip here. This is from on the Rachel Maddow show Tuesday, November 17th, 2020. Ali Velshi was sitting in for Rachel Maddow. And Ali Velshi interviewed Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. Now, what happened was it was right about 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that the news broke that the Republicans, the two Republicans on the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, decided to certify the votes for city of Detroit. After initially being deadlocked on a vote to certify the election, the Wayne County Board of Canvassers voted unanimously to certify election results Tuesday evening, November 17th. The motion to hold another vote came following hours of public comments condemning Republican canvassers' decisions to vote against the certification. The first vote tied 2-2. Along party lines, Democrat versus Republican. But just before 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuesday, November 17th, the board filed a motion and voted to certify the results under the stipulation that Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson does a comprehensive audit of the election in the county. Okay, let's go to this clip from the Rachel Maddow show.
In the Secretary of State of Michigan, Jocelyn Benson, who is at the heart of what is happening tonight. Secretary of State, good to see you. I do believe we got her here. Here we go. All right. So we started the show talking about the Wayne County Board of Canvassers refusing to certify the results from that county. I was on with the Lieutenant Governor. After he left, we found out that they had changed the vote and they've now certified the results, apparently after 3 hours of public pressure. But there's some request for you to do something in the state. So I want to know whether you know that, whether you were involved in that, and what that means.
Well, yes, I think this is really a reflection of truth winning out and winning, and voters' will and voices winning the day. The 4-0 vote by the Wayne County Board of Canvassers to certify the elections for all of Wayne County, including Detroit, really underscores the fact that there were no irregularities. There was no widespread fraud found in Michigan, found in Wayne County. What there were and what was an issue were some bookkeeping errors that, frankly, are really, par for the course and quite common throughout the state and other states as well. And they've never held up certification before. In fact, even in 2016, there were 80% of precincts found to be out of balance. Here in 2020, closer to 40% were found to be out of balance, yet it did not hold up certification in 2016 and shouldn't and ultimately didn't hold up certification here. Now, what our office was then asked to do was to look into those bookkeeping errors and to try to address some of those clerical issues. And so we're going to be looking into that request, and certainly it's important to us that every valid vote is counted and that the public have full faith in the results of the election as an accurate reflection of the will of the people.
Hey, pause it right there, Shakita.
So is that request by
Pause it
them
right there.
binding upon you, or have you agreed to do it? Or
Pause it right. Yeah, okay. We're going to continue this on the other side of the break. We're coming up on the break. But that was Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. Now, as was stated in the press conference today, that Reverend Wendell Anthony of the NAACP Detroit chapter and Mayor Mike Duggan held. We're going to share that on the other side of the break also, except for that. In 2016, 80% of Detroit precincts, 80% of Detroit precincts had out of balance ballots. We'll explain that on the other side of the break. In 2020, 42% of Detroit precincts had out of balance ballots. The Wayne County Board of Canvassers certified the ballots in 2016 for Detroit with 80% of precincts out of balance because Donald Trump won Michigan. But in 2020, the percentage of out of balance ballots was greatly improved, but they didn't want to certify the Republicans. The two Republicans on the Wayne County Board of Canvassers didn't want to certify these because Joe Biden won Michigan. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Feature Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. Okay, stand by. We're up against a break. We'll be back from commercial break in 3 minutes. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also, okay? Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. How's everybody doing? Whew, man, it's been a busy day. This story was crazy. This made national news last night. These two Republicans on the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, Monica Palmer and Bill Hartman, they were on blast across the country last night and today. All right, let's see. North Carolina, okay. We'll do that. I gotta get ready for this next segment here. Everybody stand by. Man, it's been a busy day. Here we go. Okay, hate crimes. All right, how's everybody doing? Okay. Oh, hell. What the hell? Stand by. All right, we've got some trolls here too. They're about to get blocked. Have no clue what they're talking about. All right, we have Etta, John, M. Mills. We're posting these articles also, so check this out as well. All right, let's see here. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. And we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. We're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. We're also broadcasting on 910 AM Superstation's Facebook page as well. So check us out there. Calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Right before the break, we were sharing a excerpt from the Rachel Maddow show from Tuesday, November 17th. Ali Velshi was sitting in for Rachel Maddow. Ali Velshi was interviewing Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson regarding the Wayne County Board of Canvassers at first refusing to certify the votes in the presidential election for Detroit. Okay, now Wayne County is the county that Detroit is in. Detroit is the most populous city in the state of Michigan. Wayne County is the most populous county in the state of Michigan. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson discusses how the process will proceed in certifying Michigan's election results now that Republicans on the Wayne County Board of Canvassers have reversed their deadlocking votes. Okay, as we reported to you on Tuesday. So at the beginning of the Rachel Maddow show on MSNBC, they had the two Republicans on the Wayne County Board of Canvassers had refused to certify the votes for Detroit. Then, right about 9:30, okay, just before 9:30, they changed course and decided to certify. Okay, back up that clip, maybe about 20 seconds, Shakita, and let's go back to this clip. Okay, we're going to have it starting up here.
It does not appear to be binding. We're still looking into those details. And again, this is all happening as we speak. I think the gratifying thing is really what was validated, which was there was no widespread fraud, no irregularities, only clerical errors, and the results have now been certified. This now clears the way for the state certification of the results in the days ahead, and we can move forward ensuring that the will of the people in Michigan are heard and are reflected in the official certification of every county in the state.
What happens next? Was this going to affect the state certification? And is there anything else outstanding in Michigan where it can go wrong? Or is Michigan going to certify that Joe Biden won the presidential race in that state?
We certainly appear to be fully on track to certify the results of the election as we've known them for nearly 2 weeks now, which was, not just in the results of the presidential race, but other races as well, including the U.S. Senate. So there are still a few counties that are finishing up their canvassing process, which again is proper protocol. We fully expect they'll certify. Then the State Board of Canvassers will perform their ministerial role, certifying the results, which the governor and I will then validate, and we'll move forward from there. Ensuring again that the votes as reflected in the unofficial totals become that full certification with the official results and the electoral votes for Michigan going to President-elect Joe Biden.
And do we have a date when that's going to happen, or a date by which it has to happen, the full state certification, or all of the precincts, all of the counties certifying?
Well, today was the day for the counties to finish their certification, and now it goes to the state, and it will likely be sometime next week. Again, this is all still happening as we speak. So I expect the State Board of Canvassers will meet sometime next week or sometime very shortly in the days ahead to perform their ministerial role of certifying the full statewide results, which will then be transmitted in the proper course to the legislature and other official capacities onto Washington.
I saw earlier on Twitter, people were very concerned about the outcome of this after the first vote. And someone said, is Jocelyn Benson concerned? And you tweeted back that you're not concerned. So you thought this was going to go the way it ended up going. We appreciate you taking time to join us this evening. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, thank you for joining us on such short notice.
Okay, so that was from Tuesday, November 17th, 2020, on the Rachel Maddow show on MSNBC. Ali Velshi was sitting in for Rachel Maddow. Ali Velshi interviewed Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, but he also interviewed our Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist as well earlier in the show. It was a crazy day. Then my show came on an hour after that show went off. My show was on 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Tuesday. All hell broke loose. This made the national news. This made national news across the country, and it continued today. Okay. Now, there was a press conference held in Detroit. Reverend Wendell Anthony, president of the Detroit chapter of the NAACP, held a press conference with Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan. Okay. Detroit Free Press has an article about this. Detroit Mayor blasts Trump attacks, says voting count was 99.9% accurate. Detroit Mayor blasts Trump attacks, says voting count was 99.9% accurate. When the press conference was happening live, we shared the broadcast on Facebook from Fox 2 News. We shared that on our Facebook fan page. The African History Network is there. You can check it out. And then also I just recently shared the one from WXYZ Channel 7 News in Detroit as well. But as Detroit Free Press reports, as Donald Trump continued to make allegations about the election in Michigan, Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, who is white for those that don't know, Detroit's 80% African American, but whatever. Okay. Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan defended the voting and tabulation process in the city, saying the results were 99.9% accurate and that Republican claims of fraud were quote unquote utter nonsense, which it is utter nonsense. Okay. Now, Mayor Mike Duggan spoke Wednesday at the Detroit office of the NAACP, the day after a tense meeting of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, which had initially deadlocked 2-2 along party lines, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, in certifying the election results in Michigan's largest county, Wayne County, but later voted 4-0 after speakers blasted the 2 Republicans for their opposition to vote certification. Okay, to certify the votes. Mayor Mike Duggan and Reverend Wendell Anthony, president of the Detroit chapter of the NAACP, slammed the Republican attacks this week as part of a pattern of racist attempts to disenfranchise African American voters. They echoed the views of speakers during Tuesday's meeting who slammed the 2 Republicans for initially voting to block certification. Mayor Mike Duggan said American democracy cracked last night, but it didn't break. We are seeing a real threat to everything we believe in, that everybody's vote counts the same. But what you are seeing in this country right now is an effort to say we only want to count the votes of people who agree with us, end quote. Now, during the Wayne County Board meeting, the Republican members, Monica Palmer and William Hartman, okay, whose names are all across national media as they should be exposed, they raised concerns. These 2 white Republicans raised concerns about what are called out of balance precincts. Out of balance precincts, meaning there are small discrepancies between the number of people signed in to vote and the number of ballots. They said the discrepancies were why they voted to block certification. Both Republicans and Democrats on the 4-member board of the Wayne County canvassers agreed there were some out of balance precincts. But the 2 Democrats on the board noted this is something that has happened in previous elections and was in such small numbers to not make any difference in the outcome of the election. In their 4-0 unanimous vote to certify the votes, the Wayne County Board of Canvassers said it would ask the state to conduct an audit of precincts that were out of balance. And that's what Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson said she would do in the previous clip that we played. I want to go to an excerpt here of the press conference that was held Wednesday, November 18th, 2020, with at the Detroit branch of the NAACP. It's Reverend Wendell Anthony and Mayor Mike Duggan. Let's go to this clip.
Is an effort to say we only want to count the votes of people who agree with it. I want to take a minute to discuss the out of balance precincts, which was the big subject yesterday. That was the pretext, and the idea that the out of balance precincts reflects any problem with the voting is utter nonsense. Here's what it means. At the end of the night, you add up the number of people who are recorded in the poll book as having voted and the number of ballots, and they should match. If they're off by one, that's called an out of ballot precinct, which is what they were discussing yesterday. How does that happen? In most cases, on the absentee side, it happens because the envelopes come in. Somebody has a bar scanner. They scan the person's name on the envelope, and then they put the ballot through the machine. They may think the scanner caught the person's name, but if it didn't and doesn't record, at the end of the night, you could have 541 ballots and 540 scanned names. It just means the bar scanner missed. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong. At the poll, the most likely case is you spoil your ballot, you go up to the clerk, they give you a new one, and they void the old one. The clerk's supposed to write down that they issued a new ballot. But if they forget to do that, at the end of the night, it'll show 388 ballots issued, 387 counted. That's out of balance. It is not any indication of any kind of fraud in the voting process. And the total number of out of balance counts last night was 357 in a city that had 250,000 votes. In other words, 99.9% was done correctly. Now, protections are there for a reason. If the presidential election in Michigan was decided by 100 votes, it would have made sense in the canvass to audit those 300. It might have changed the outcome. But Michigan was decided by 145,000 votes. And they knew that there was no chance it had a material effect on the outcome. The behavior yesterday was for no reason except to try to discredit the election and undo the votes. And we've seen it this year. The Trump strategy was legal strategies across this country. First, make it hard for people they don't think are going to vote for them, largely African American, make it hard to be registered. If you get registered, but you're fearful of COVID, particularly the fact that the black community is dying from COVID at a much higher rate than Caucasians, but we will make it hard for you to vote by mail. And if you do vote, they now say, we're going to make it hard to count your vote. We're going to accuse you of fraud, and we're going to do everything to disrupt it. That is not democracy, and it's impossible to overlook the racial element of this. Look at the swing from a 10,000 vote Trump win 4 years ago to 145,000 vote Biden win. The largest area swing, Oakland County, swung 54,000 votes. The second largest area, suburbs in Wayne County, swung 35,000 votes. More than half of the swing was in just the suburbs there. But when they realized on Wednesday, as the votes were coming in and Trump was going to lose Michigan, they didn't send their Republicans to pound on windows in the clerk's office in Birmingham or Farmington or Grosse Pointe saying stop the vote, even though that's where they were losing. They played to people's worst racial prejudices and went down to the city of Detroit where professional people, our neighbors, were just doing their job, counting ballots, with plenty of Republican challengers who were in the room, started pounding on the windows, tried to intimidate the workers by videotaping them and the like. And this is what is so aggravating. We've had 3 lawsuits that have been ruled on by 5 courts, 3 trial courts and 2 courts of appeals. Not one of those 5 courts has found a shred of truth to the Republicans' claim of fraud in the city of Detroit. 2 weeks later, they have not a single Detroiter who they can point to as voted who wasn't eligible to vote. Not one. 5 courts in a row have said their claims are not credible, and yet they persist in what they are trying to do. And you could see the racism in the behavior last night. out of balance precincts happen everywhere. In fact, there were 30 suburbs with out of balance precincts. These kind of human errors happen. And yet you heard Monica Palmer, the chair of the board, say she was prepared to certify every community except Detroit. She was ready to certify 30 largely white communities with out of balance precincts, but only in Detroit, where they didn't vote the way she wanted, did she attempt to hold up the certification. I don't begin to know how to thank the people who spoke up, because the ultimate hypocrisy of this makes me so angry. 4 years ago, the clerk's office had far more out of balance precincts in 2016 than in 2020. And there was only a 10,000 vote margin in the state. 4 years ago, the Republicans on the board of canvassers had no problem whatever certifying the count with the out of balance precincts, because they know it's an inconsequential number of votes. It doesn't change the outcome. But this year, all of a sudden, when the vote didn't go their way, they say, we're not going to count. The people who got on last night, some very eloquent people, Reverend Anthony, you expect to be eloquent, but I was pretty proud of a lot of citizens who spoke out and they're being canceled. And I think ultimately convinced that we're going to reverse themselves. But make no mistake, there is still one more chance to cancel democracy in the state of Michigan. We have a state of Michigan board of canvassers. And if the Trump campaign tries the same kind of tactics there as we saw in Wayne County, the votes of the people of this state are still at risk. So I would say to the people of Detroit and the people of Michigan, you need to be vigilant. You need to be online, paying attention to what the State Board of Canvassers does. At this point, there is absolutely no excuse for anything except certification. But of course, we've seen behavior before that violates our rights. And so we're going to stay vigilant every step of the way. And I'll turn it back to Reverend Anthony.
Hey, pause it right there, Shakita. We're gonna pick up at that point just a minute, but pause it right there for a minute. Okay, so that was Mayor Mike Duggan, Mayor of Detroit. Okay. And what he said was that in the year 2016, in the city of Detroit, 80% of the precincts in the city of Detroit had out of balance ballots in 2016, but the Wayne County Board of Canvassers certified the votes in the city of Detroit because Donald Trump won Michigan. He won Michigan by 10,704 votes. Okay. Now in 2020, the percentage of out of balance precincts in Detroit drastically improved. There was only 42% of out of balance precincts, but they didn't want to certify the votes for the city of Detroit. There were about 250,000 votes that came out of the city of Detroit. They didn't want to certify those. And when it comes to out of balance ballots that came out of that 250,000, there was only 357 out of balance ballots. 99.9% of the ballots were fine. Okay, the 357 that were out of balance won't make a difference in the outcome of the race. Joe Biden is winning Michigan by about 146,000 votes. So you certified, you didn't have a problem certifying in 2016 when Trump won Michigan, but you don't want to certify in 2020 when Joe Biden is winning Michigan. And Joe Biden is winning Michigan by a margin 10 times greater than the margin Trump won Michigan by. Trump won Michigan by 10,704 votes in 2016. Joe Biden will win Michigan by about 146,000 votes. Okay, so now Monica Palmer said, so there were 30 suburbs within the Wayne County that also had out of ballot precincts. The city of Livonia, which is 95% white, Livonia had more out of ballot precincts than the city of Detroit. Monica Palmer didn't have a problem certifying the 30 suburbs that had out of ballot precincts, including the city of Livonia, but she didn't want to certify Detroit. These are the type of games people are playing. And they got, and see what happened. There was a Zoom call where the Wayne County Board of Canvassers were meeting. And then this information came out that they weren't going to certify, and more citizens came on the Zoom call and expressed their outrage. And this made national news. They got their asses blasted on national news. Okay. Now, I want to go back to this clip here. Now, this is Reverend Wendell Anthony, president of the Detroit chapter NAACP. He was also on Roland Martin Unfiltered today as well. Roland interviewed him. I'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered Friday. I'm a panelist each Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Okay. Now, Reverend Wendell Anthony is going to talk about the role that citizens played in showing their outrage in what they tried to do to African Americans' votes in Detroit. Let's go back to this clip, Shakita. And turn up a little bit.
Accident on Twin Fall last night's later. As I talked about this, I as a reporter, I got like emails and text messages about this upcoming canvassing meeting. And I think there was a lot of organizing going into that call. Lots of people wanted to call them.
So reporters asking a question.
I think it played a major difference. The people will not be rejected, and the people, once united, cannot be defeated. I think that the voices on the Zoom call, and keep in mind, originally there was supposed to be 100, then they had to expand it to 300, then they expanded again because of the number of people that were checking in to be a part of that. Everybody still didn't get a chance to express themselves, but enough people expressed themselves so that the canvassers got the message. And I think that for those who did not get a chance to express themselves, hopefully something that was said did express your thinking. But for those who were on it, they were clear, they were direct, it was unfiltered, and people really understood that. That's the kind of vigilance that is needed in a democracy. That's what democracy is all about. And you could see and feel the resentment of the people who were on the call because we worked hard. People stood in line. People voted early. People sent folk down to the TCF Center who were there. I had people to call. We had people at the TCF Center. My daughter was at the TCF Center. She saw the people invading the center, banging on the windows, coming down there, sitting in the middle of the aisles, invading their space, not wearing face masks, talking all the stuff that they were talking, threatening to sue people and to intimidate them. That was on purpose. And it's only done in Black communities. As the mayor indicated, it was not done in Oakland County, not done in Macomb County, but not done in the Upper Peninsula. Where was it done? In Detroit, in Wayne County. Where is it being done? In Philadelphia, in Milwaukee, in Atlanta. It's being done in Black cities across the country. It's all right if we win, count the votes. It's not all right if we're not winning, stop the votes. You can't have it both ways. Democracy had its day, and on January the 20th, no matter what these people try to do, on January the 20th, at 12 o'clock, a man by the name of Joe Biden will place his left hand on the Bible, and he'll raise his right hand before the nation and take an oath to become the 46th president of these United States of America. And a woman by the name of Kamala Harris will become the first.
Okay.
Become the vice president of the United States of America. Now run and tell that.
Okay, pause right there, Shakita. All right, now you can watch the press conference in its entirety, WXYZ, WXYZ.com, WXYZ.com, Channel 7 in Detroit. Also fox2news.com. I think that's my Fox Detroit. They have the press conference there. Okay. And read the article from the Detroit Free Press. We posted it here on the thread of our broadcast. Detroit Mayor blasts Trump attacks, says voting count was 99.9% accurate. All right. Okay. So that's what went down. Now, he said the State Board of Canvassers, the state of Michigan Board of Canvassers, the Trump campaign may attempt to try to get the Republican electors to show up on December 14th when the Electoral College votes to actually cast their votes. But they can try, but that's not going to happen. But let's look at what's going on in Pennsylvania. Trump asked judge to let Pennsylvania legislature pick presidential electors. Okay, now Trump is lost, but he's still raising money to pay off campaign debt and pay legal fees. Okay, this is what a lot of this is about. And some people suspect this is also trying to keep his base engaged because they need Republicans to turn out January 5th for the special elections in Georgia, the 2 senatorial special elections in Georgia. Senator David Perdue, Republican, against John Ossoff, Democrat, and Reverend Raphael Warnock running against Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler. Okay, this is in Georgia, and this is for control of the U.S. Senate. If Democrats win these 2 Senate races, they'll be in control in the Senate. Mitch McConnell won't be Senate Majority Leader. If there's a 50-50 tie in the Senate, the tie-breaking vote goes to the MVP, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump asked judge to let Pennsylvania legislature pick presidential electors. The Trump campaign asked a federal judge on Wednesday to throw out Pennsylvania's election results and have the state's Republican-controlled legislature appoint its presidential electors. The president's attorneys requested that U.S. District Judge Matthew Brand declare the state's results, quote unquote, defective on the grounds that officials illegally mishandled the election process. Under Pennsylvania state law, the state's presidential electors are to be appointed by Governor Tom Wolf, who is a Democrat, based on the popular vote. Okay, so Joe Biden won the state of Pennsylvania. Okay, so Pennsylvania has 20 electoral college votes. So the Democratic slate of electors will cast their votes on December 14th. The Electoral College votes the first Monday following the second Wednesday in December. This is when the Electoral College votes. So in December 2016, that fell on December, I think it was December 19th, 2016, that fell. This time is falling on December 14th. Republican leaders in the state legislature have insisted for weeks that they will have no role in the process, even as they have come under pressure from Trump supporters to overturn President-elect Joe Biden's victory. So Republicans in the state legislature of Pennsylvania said, we ain't going along with this. We're not going to overturn the will of the people. See, this is stuff dictators do. These are things that happen in what Europeans call third world countries. Things like this is what happens in dictatorships. And there's an election and the dictator gets voted out of office, but he doesn't want to go. Now, Trump's campaign made its request in a proposed updated version of a federal lawsuit against state and county election officials in a court filing asking Judge Brand to grant permission to update the lawsuit. Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, who hasn't practiced law, hasn't been in federal court in 28 years. Okay, that case yesterday got thrown out of court. Okay, hasn't been in federal court trying a case in 28 years. Now he may end up in federal court after Trump leaves office, when these indictments get unsealed in New York, U.S. Attorney's Office in New York or Manhattan, one of them. Okay, so these are going to be a lot of indictments coming after January 20th, 2021. In a court filing asking Judge Brand to grant permission to update the lawsuit, Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, said the campaign would, quote, seek the remedy of Trump being declared the winner of the legal votes. Okay, the winner of the legal votes cast in Pennsylvania in the 2020 general election, and thus the recipient of Pennsylvania's electors, end quote. Now, the campaign alleges that its constitutional rights were violated because some Democratic-leaning counties allow voters to fix errors on their mail-in ballots, while some Republican-leaning counties did not. Okay, the Trump campaign alleges that its constitutional rights were violated because some Democratic-leaning counties allow voters to fix errors on their mail-in ballots, while some Republican-leaning counties did not. It also alleges that observers were illegally prevented from watching votes being counted. Now, election officials deny this, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled on Tuesday, November 17th, that Philadelphia authorities gave reasonable access to the observers. The proposed updated version of the lawsuit reiterates Trump's request from Judge Brand to block certification of the election results by Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar, Boockvar. It asked that as an alternative, Judge Brand enter an order handing control of the presidential electors to the legislature, to the Pennsylvania state legislature. Now, President-elect Joe Biden has been projected the winner in Pennsylvania and leads President Trump by more than 80,000 votes in the state. So Trump wants to overturn the will of the people in Pennsylvania and they're trying to steal this electoral college. It's not going to work, though. It's not going to go down like that. It's not going to go down like that. What you should do is call 1-866, call Tyrone, call the Jim James, Paul and Tyrone Moving Company, and make an appointment for them to move your stuff January 20th, 2021. Okay. Hashtag pack your stuff. Hashtag it's time for you to go. Okay, we're going to continue this discussion on our social media platforms. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Follow me on my Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Also on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. We're going to continue the discussion for a little while longer. We'll deal with hate crime surging in the U.S. What took place to me, what they tried to do in disenfranchise African Americans and invalidate our votes. To me, that's a hate crime. Okay. Hate crimes in the U.S. reached highest level in more than a decade. We'll talk about that. We'll also give an update on what's going on with coronavirus, and we'll deal with this date in African American history. November 15th, 1830, North Carolina Legislature mandates death sentence for repeated dissemination of anti-slavery pamphlets. Okay. You can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, and visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com also. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Right now, it's correct wrong behaviors. Now over to Wednesday 2 from Greg Davis, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. All right, stand by. Stand by, everybody. All right, let's continue here. How's everybody doing? Let's continue. All right, everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. We have 3 more spots available on our daily show. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Okay. Let's look quickly here at an update on what's going on with coronavirus. And then we'll talk about hate crime surging in the U.S. So the U.S. has reached another grim milestone. 250,000 deaths in the U.S. was reached today. Recording 250,000 deaths as of today, according to the latest NBC News tally. The 257,000 deaths were logged this morning, the data shows. Now, the number of deaths has risen by 42% in the last 4 weeks. The number of deaths due to coronavirus has risen by 42% the last 4 weeks, from a weekly average of 821 per day, a weekly average of 821 per day in early October, to an average of 1,167 fatalities per day last week. Okay, it's gone from a weekly average of 821 deaths per day in early October to an average of 1,167 fatalities per day last week. Now, the U.S. also leads the world with more than 11.4 million reported cases, more than 11.4 million reported cases, and a record 76,823 people who are hospitalized nationwide, according to the COVID tracking project. 76,000 people hospitalized due to COVID-19 nationwide. The hospitals are being overwhelmed now. The doctors and nurses, many of them are at their breaking points because they're dealing not just with sick people, but they're dealing with death. A lot of them are suffering from PTSD. They're suffering from exhaustion. And when Thanksgiving comes and people are not going to follow common sense, not follow CDC guidelines, they're going to go over other people's houses. You're going to see, if you think coronavirus is bad now, wait till Thanksgiving comes. If people don't use some common sense. Okay. Now, we also see that governors, we also see that a lot of Republican governors have started instituting restrictions. Imagine that. Okay. We see it in Kansas. We see it in Kentucky. Governors in Minnesota, Kentucky, Kansas are the latest to announce new coronavirus restrictions as cases hit record levels. The surge shows no sign of stopping as we move toward winter. Winter officially comes either December 20th or December 21st this year. It's the winter solstice. And health officials are very concerned that gatherings over Thanksgiving could make it even worse. The White House Coronavirus Task Force said in its latest internal report obtained by NBC News that there is now aggressive, unrelenting, expanding broad community spread across the country, reaching most counties without evidence of improvement, but rather further deterioration. Okay. Now, this was I'm going to see if we can pull this up here. This was a internal report from the White House. The White House Coronavirus Task Force said in its latest internal report obtained by NBC News that there is now unrelenting, now aggressive, unrelenting, expanding, broad community spread across the country, reaching most counties without evidence of improvement, but rather further deterioration. Let me see, can we pull it up here? We'll do it this way. The report also warned that current efforts to stop the spread are inadequate and must be increased to flatten the curve. The current mitigation efforts, they're inadequate right now. They have to increase the efforts. It's not working. It's not slowing it down. Okay. And these are things I've been talking about. You watch this show. These things I've been talking about. So they referenced this article here we talked about on the show yesterday, from November 17th, 2020. COVID-19 cases are on the rise in all 50 states. NBC News data shows COVID-19 cases are on the rise in all 50 states. I'm going to turn on the screen share. I want people to see this. See, this is not a game. Now, some of the same stupid ass people today that say COVID-19 is a hoax and all this BS, right? These are some of the same people who back in March and February said black people can't get coronavirus. Okay. Now we disproportionately make up the people who are dying from it. All right. Now, let's be honest. Some of those people who were talking that nonsense, they're not here with us anymore now. And, you know, well, hey, it is what it is. But let's look at this quickly here. All right. How you doing? Tina, Tawana, Joa, Martins, Mark. How's everybody doing? Yeah, Joe Biden will be inaugurated. People need to stop listening to nonsensical conspiracy theories. COVID-19 cases are on the rise in all 50 states. NBC News data shows. In other coronavirus news, White House task force warns of unrelenting spread. Doctors urge Trump to brief Biden, and Dolly Parton helped fund Moderna vaccine. Let's see. Okay, we talked about some of this last night, but I want to look at this is an update here. I want to see if I can find this. The right one. So, search for, do keyword search here. Why doesn't it let me do? All right, but you have to check out this article. I'm trying to find the part that I want, but the report also warned that current efforts to stop the spread are inadequate. Are inadequate and must be increased to flatten the curve. And Thanksgiving has the potential to amplify transmission considerably. Let's see here. Where is that? Let's see. The White House Coronavirus Task Force bluntly stated in its latest weekly report, its third paragraph, in its latest weekly report, that there is now aggressive, unrelenting, expanding, broad community spread across the country, reaching most counties without evidence of improvement, but rather further deterioration. Let me blow this up here. Okay. The task force report obtained by NBC News warned that the current efforts to stop the spread are inadequate. Now, with so many new cases, hospitals across the country and the doctors treating the deluge of new patients were reaching the breaking point. Dr. Jeff Popoff from the University of Wisconsin Hospital emergency room doctor and chief quality officer said on MSNBC, every day we seem to break our record for total number of new patients. We're all tired. Everyone is tired. We're all doing our best. Medicine is our team sport. Medicine is a team sport, but we need some help. Things are not going well for us. Things are not going well for us. Well, this is what happens when you have incompetent leadership. Okay, this is an example of what happens when you have incompetent leadership and elections have consequences. Okay, read this full article here. This is from November 17th, 2020 from NBC News. COVID-19 cases are on the rise in all 50 states, NBC News data shows. I want to go back to the I want to go back to the updates from Washington Post. Washington Post has really good updates dealing with coronavirus. Okay, governors in Minnesota, Kentucky, and Kansas are the latest to announce new coronavirus restrictions as cases hit record levels. New York City schools are closing Thursday, November 19th, because of rising COVID-19 rates in the city. Okay, so they're going to do virtual learning, online learning. They're shutting down all New York City public schools. Let's see. Americans seeking coronavirus tests are experiencing lengthier lines and waiting days to get test results. Let's look at some of the latest updates here. Long lines and delayed results again plague coronavirus tests as Thanksgiving approaches. So Americans seeking coronavirus tests amid an unprecedented surge in cases are experiencing lengthier lines and waiting days to get test results, delays that complicate efforts to slow the pandemic and that are expected to intensify as people try to get tested ahead of family gatherings. So more people are going to get tested. This then lengthens the amount of time that you have to wait for results. And then if you test positive, you could have infected a number of people while you wait for results. And it makes the contact tracing much harder. So it makes it much harder to clamp down on coronavirus and reduce the spread of it. Testing sites from New York to Wisconsin to Oregon are reporting lines stretching 3 to 4 hours. Testing sites from New York to Wisconsin to Oregon are reporting lines stretching 3 to 4 hours, with results taking as long as 5 days. In Denver, officials at one testing site shut down within an hour of opening on Tuesday because it had reached capacity. At another site, lines grew so long that officials closed over concerns about traffic safety. In New York, residents are standing in line for hours. In Olympia, Washington, officials have had to turn away as many as 200 cars in line in recent days because labs had reached capacity. Remember somebody said everybody who wants a test gets a test. Everybody who wants a test gets a test. There's no problem. Deaths highest since May. Hospitalization set record as U.S. toll nears 250,000. On Wednesday, COVID-19 killed nearly 1,900 people in the U.S., the highest number of fatalities reported in a single day since the first week of May, during some of the pandemic's darkest days. And on the same day, the U.S. set a record for the number of virus patients hospitalized, a number that has more than doubled in the past month. The metric is particularly concerning, experts say, because it is likely to presage more deaths as hospitals and staff become stretched thin. A growing number of state leaders have rolled out new restrictions this week in an effort to interrupt that trend, turning back to measures they employed in the spring. Steve Stack, the head of Kentucky's public health department, said at a news conference announcing the state's new round of restrictions, quote, we ran out of easy choices and decisions a long time ago. Now, Steve Stack, appearing on video chat, broke down briefly, making an emotional plea to the state's residents. He said, folks, we've got to do this. We can overcome it. Now, nearly every state is in similarly dire straits. 42 states have set records for average daily cases in the past week. As of Wednesday, November 18th, 2020, the country's 7-day average for new cases stood at more than 160,000 new cases a day for a 7-day average. That is a record. Now, more than 3 million people in the U.S. are estimated to be contagious with coronavirus. Okay. More than 3 million people in the United States have active coronavirus infections and are potentially contagious, according to a new estimate from infectious disease experts tracking the pandemic. The number is significantly larger than the official case count, which is based solely on those who have tested positive for the virus. More than 3 million people in the U.S. are estimated to be contagious with coronavirus, but they haven't been tested yet. The vast and rapidly growing pool of coronavirus infected people poses a daunting challenge to the governors and mayors in hard-hit communities who are trying to arrest the surge in cases. Traditional efforts such as testing, isolation of the sick, and contact tracing can be overwhelmed when a virus spreads at an exponential rate, especially when large numbers of asymptomatic people may be walking around without even knowing they are infectious. Read the updates from the Washington Post. Read this article here from Washington Post as well. More than 3 million people in the U.S. estimated to be contagious with coronavirus. It's from November 18th, 2020. All right. So I want to go to this other article here. How's everybody doing? African-American business owners, post name your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Email us at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and we'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network also. Okay, so I want to go to this other story here. This is dealing with hate crimes. Hate crimes are surging. Okay, how's everybody doing on YouTube also? Hate crimes are surging in the U.S. under Donald Trump. Wonder why? Associated Press has a story dealing with this. We're going to we'll come to that here in just a second here. And African-American business owners, email us at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And we put together a video commercial for you as well. And you can just send us a script. We'll put together a video commercial for you. It'll air when we rebroadcast. The broadcast of these shows on our social media platforms. Your commercial will re-air. And it's also an audio podcast format as well. We're on 8 different audio podcast platforms: Castbox, Acast, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio. Okay, we're on 8 different audio podcast platforms, so listeners will hear your commercials when they listen to the audio podcast of our shows also. Okay. And so email us at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. One Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black history mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid was named among the change makers for NBC Universal's Erase the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid Al-Hakim directly at 313-645-4197. Stand by. On blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com. bhistory inspired apparel catered to the Black shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, jackets, dresses, skirts, activewear, bags, and other accessories and home decor. Black pride and honor their African heritage anywhere at any time. This apparel line is for anyone, whether you are working in the corporate world, are an entrepreneur, or an artist. Their selection will allow you to casually let your pride shine or dress it up as wanted. It is for those who have already embraced African fabrics and for those who are just getting introduced to them. Reclaim and experience a part of our culture with rich and colorful African prints. The clothing line and the accessories are available right now starting at $17.99. For more information on the new items and accessories, visit yayarule.com. Email us at customer service at africanhistorynetwork.com. Customer service at africanhistorynetwork.com. All right, so those are a few of the commercials I put together. Email us at customer service at africanhistorynetwork.com. Okay. All right, let's continue here. Yeah, trolls are popping up. I got trolls in different area codes. They have nothing better to do, but I'm blocking trolls. So, all right, let's continue. So hate crimes are surging in America. Imagine that. Associated Press is reporting November 16, 2020, hate crimes in the U.S. reach highest level in more than a decade. Now, has Donald Trump talked about this? I'm just curious. He said what all he was going to do for Black people. Has he talked about this? Hate crimes in the U.S. reach highest level in more than a decade. As federal officials also recorded the highest number of hate-motivated killings since the FBI began collecting that data in the early 1990s, according to an FBI report released this past Monday. Now, there were 51 hate crimes, 51 hate crime murders in 2019. There were 51 hate crime murders in 2019, which includes 22 people who were killed in a shooting that targeted Mexicans at a Walmart in the border city of El Paso, Texas, the report said. The suspect in the August 2019 shooting, which left 24 other people injured, was charged with both state and federal crimes in what authorities said was an attempt to scare Hispanics into leaving the United States. Yeah, it's interesting that you do that in El Paso, Texas, and Texas used to be part of Mexico. You have a shooting in El Paso, Texas, to scare Mexicans to leave the U.S., but Texas used to be part of Mexico. Okay. There were 7,314 hate crimes in 2019, which was up from 7,120 hate crimes in 2018, and approaching the 7,783 hate crimes of the year 2008. Okay, 7,783 hate crimes in the year 2008. In 2019, there was 7,314 hate crimes. Now, the FBI's annual report defines hate crimes as those motivated by bias based on a person's race, religion, or sexual orientation, among other categories. The FBI's annual report defines hate crimes as those motivated by bias based on a person's race, religion, or sexual orientation, among other categories. Now, some of the 2019 increases in hate crimes may be the result of better reporting by police departments, but law enforcement officials and advocacy groups don't doubt that hate crimes are on the rise. Law enforcement officials and advocacy groups don't doubt that hate crimes are on the rise. The U.S. Justice Department has for years been specifically prioritizing hate crime prosecutions. The data also shows there was a nearly 7% increase in religion-based hate crimes. There was also a nearly 7% increase in religion-based hate crimes, with 953 reports of crimes targeting Jews and Jewish institutions in the year 2019, which was up from 835 hate crimes targeting Jews and Jewish institutions in 2018. 953 hate crimes targeting Jews and Jewish institutions in 2019, up from 835 in 2018. Now, the FBI said the number of hate crimes against African Americans dropped slightly to 1,930 from 1,943. Okay, 1,930 in 2019 dropped slightly from 1,943 in 2018. Anti-Hispanic hate crimes, however, rose to 527 in 2019 from 485 in 2018. Anti-Hispanic hate crimes rose to 527 in 2019 from 485 in 2018. And the total number of hate crimes based on a person's sexual orientation stayed relatively stable, with one fewer crime reported in 2019 compared with the year 2018, though there were 20 more hate crimes against gay men reported. Now, as the data was made public this past Monday, advocacy groups, including the Anti-Defamation League, called on the U.S. Congress and law enforcement agencies across the U.S. to improve data collection and reporting of hate crimes. Now, critics have long warned that the data may be incomplete, in part because it is based on voluntary reporting by police agencies across the country. The hate crime data that's compiled by the FBI is based upon voluntary reporting by police agencies across the country. Now, last year, in 2019, only 2,172 law enforcement agencies out of about 15,000 participating agencies across the country actually reported hate crime data to the FBI. Okay, let me repeat this. In 2019, only 2,172 law enforcement agencies out of approximately 15,000 participating law enforcement agencies across the country actually reported hate crime data to the FBI. The FBI reported. Okay, so you're looking at only about 20%. Okay, you're looking at you're looking at less than 20%. You're looking at right about only maybe about 15% of the 15,000 participating law enforcement agencies are actually reported hate crime data. Now, while the number of agencies reporting hate crimes increased, the number of agencies participating in the program actually dropped from the year before. A large number of police agencies appeared not to submit any hate crime data, which has been a consistent struggle for the Justice Department. All right, check out the rest of this article here from the Associated Press. Hate crimes in U.S. reach highest level in more than a decade. This is from November 16th, 2020. APnews.com, Associated Press, by Michael Balsamo. Now, has Donald Trump mentioned this? Has any of these black conservatives that support Donald Trump, Bruce Lavelle, Jack Brewer, who was in commercials promoting Donald Trump, has Herschel Walker talked about this? Has Candace Owens talked about this? In these black conservatives, Paris Denard, have they talked about this at all? I'm just curious. Very interesting. Radio silence. Wonder why. Have they talked about the Republicans trying to disenfranchise African Americans in Atlanta, invalidate the votes of African Americans in Atlanta, overturn these elections in Atlanta and Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh and Detroit? Have they been talking about this? I'm not sure. Maybe if they speak out, the checks will stop coming to them from these white people that are financing them. Because let me know when they speak out against this and denounce this. Let me know when they speak out against this and denounce this. Because if they speak out and denounce this, the checks is going to stop coming to them. All right, this is what's going to happen. Let's see here. So you how are you going to go and tell African Americans, oh, you should support Trump, you should support Republicans? Republicans are largely silent on this. Republicans are largely silent on it. You had Lindsey Graham. We talked about this past 2 nights. You had Lindsey Graham, Senator of South Carolina, trying to pressure Raffensperger, who's the Secretary of State in Georgia, to try to invalidate ballots in Georgia to steal this election, to steal Georgia for Trump. Then Lindsey Graham said that he talked to the Secretary of State in Arizona and Nevada. Secretary of State in Arizona was interviewed on MSNBC last night. She said, I haven't talked to Lindsey Graham. Then Lindsey Graham said, oh, I talked to the governor. I think it was the governor of Arizona he said he talked to. It's like, people asking questions. Wait a second, you're a senator in South Carolina. What the hell are you doing trying to talk to the Secretary of State in Arizona and Nevada? So you have Republicans, like Donald Trump put that little platinum plan out that I said was a fool's gold plan. But at the same time, he and many Republicans are trying to invalidate the votes of African Americans in key cities that have a high African American population. And you wonder why we didn't vote for your ass. There was let me see here. There was which one was this? There was one from MSNBC I was going to play. I think it's this one here. Graham faces questions for reaching out to Georgia election official. Let me see. Is this one here? This is from the 11th hour on MSNBC. Brian Williams. This is from November 17th, 2020. I think we'll play this clip here. If you saw Joanne Reed today on November 18th, Wednesday, November 18th, 2020, she interviewed this black Republican that worked for Trump, that left the Trump administration. She made a damn fool out of him. Well, let me rephrase that. He was already a damn fool. She exposed the fact that he was a fool. I mean, but let's. She ain't make one out of him. He's already one. But let's go to this clip here. This is from the 11th hour MSNBC. So Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, is facing growing questions after Georgia's Republican Secretary of State alleged Graham pressured him to toss out legal votes in the state's recount. Okay. And also Eugene Robinson from the Washington Post is in this segment also. Let's go to this clip.
Can you clarify this conversation you had with the Secretary of State in Georgia? Did you or did you not ask him to throw out votes?
No, that's ridiculous. I talked to him about how you verify signatures.
Why is a senator from South Carolina calling the Secretary of State in Georgia anyway?
Because the future of the country hangs in the balance.
Tonight, the Secretary of State in Georgia says the official audit of voting machines found no evidence of fraud. He stood by his allegations that man, Lindsey Graham, who happens to represent the state of South Carolina, has suggested over the phone excluding some ballots. Graham says that's not true, but there's a problem with Graham's account. There were staff members on the call, including a top deputy to the Secretary of State, who confirms his boss's account of the conversation. Two more returning veterans with us tonight, Eugene Robinson, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the Washington Post, and John Heilman, author and journalist, our national affairs analyst, co-host of The Circus on Showtime, which is currently in an unwarranted and inexcusable hiatus. In his spare time, John remains executive editor of The Recount. Gentlemen, it's great to have you both. Eugene, same question my friend Garrett Hake asked Lindsey Graham. What do you think a senator from your home state of South Carolina is doing nosing around in an election recount in Georgia?
He's up to no good. I mean, look, he has no reason to meddle in the election return counting affairs of the state of Georgia. Yeah, it's a neighboring state, and yes, he is head of the Senate Judiciary Committee, but that's not relevant to this case. He has no business calling around, calling like this, and apparently, implying at least the Secretary of State of Georgia drew the inference that he was trying to get him to throw out legitimate votes for Joe Biden, so that Donald Trump potentially could win the state. I mean, that's what he seems to have been trying to do. And it's absolutely outrageous. I hope there is a thorough investigation of Senator Graham and what he's trying to do. There's always already a discrepancy. Graham said he also called the secretaries of state of a couple other states. One, and the official, he said he called in Arizona, apparently immediately denied having spoken with him at all. So we need to get to the bottom of this.
Okay, check out that clip from MSNBC, 11th hour. No, is for where they have it was actually November 17th, 2020, but they have they put the date November 18th, 2020 here. I guess that's when they uploaded the clip, but it's actually from the November 17th broadcast. Graham faces questions for reaching out to Georgia GA election official. Okay. This is from the 11th hour, MSNBC.com. I want to go to an excerpt of this interview. I saw this interview live. I saw this interview live on MSNBC, and it was Joanne Reed, the readout. She interviewed this Black Republican. I forgot his name. Yeah, Jerron Smith. She interviewed Jerron Smith, former Trump aide Jerron Smith. She interviewed him on November 18th, Wednesday, and he would not explicitly accept that Joe Biden is president-elect. Now, at first I said she made a fool out of him, but then I corrected that because no, he was a fool before he was a fool before the interview started. Okay. But here's an excerpt of that interview. I want you to listen to that. These are the type of self-deprecating African Americans, and I'm giving them benefit of the doubt when I say that, when I call them African Americans. These are the type of Negroes that Trump has around him. Okay.
Start by asking you a pretty basic sort of bottom line question. Do you accept and believe that Joe Biden is the president-elect of the United States?
Well, I think we should just let the nation kind of run its course on the investigations and lawsuits dealing with the vote. And once that's decided, we can confirm it. I think if the election was leaning in Trump's direction, we would want to run a course and make sure that every vote that was cast was appropriate.
What investigations specifically?
Well, I mean, there's a number of lawsuits that we filed that the Trump
Give me a
administration
specific
filed.
one. Name me one. Name me one that has not already been thrown out.
I'm not going to get specific. I'm just saying very generally
But you're the one who said it. You said, but hold on. You said that you think it should run its course in all the investigations. So you ought to know what investigations you mean and what you are alleging happened.
No, I wasn't being specific. I was meaning that generally. There's a number of different lawsuits that the Trump administration's filed. There's a number of different.
How many of those lawsuits have the Trump administration and the Trump campaign won?
I mean, honestly, I haven't been following it. I think just generally.
But you haven't been following it. Mm-hmm. But you're saying, but hold on. You're saying you can't accept that Joe Biden is the president-elect. You can't name me an investigation you're talking about specifically. I'll just tell you the answer. They've won 1 out of about 25 or 26. They're losing in case after case after case and state after state. Michigan has gone through Wayne County back down. They've certified that. They are going to finish the recount in Georgia. The Secretary of State there, who's a Republican, has said they found nothing that would overturn a 14,000 vote race. So what specifically is it that you need in order to accept that Joe Biden is in fact the president-elect of the United States?
He needs Donald Trump to tell him that it's okay. That's what he needs.
Just let it all run its course. I mean, there's still all of this stuff is not finished.
Let what?
I mean,
are you waiting on Rudy Giuliani's things?
I mean, look, my whole thing is this. I don't work in the Trump administration anymore. I don't work for the campaign. You asked me a general question about how I feel about the outcome of it. I'm just letting it run its course. I know that if they have a recount in Florida for the Al Gore race, they let that run its course. Let it run its course. Let the people, everyone feel confident with the outcome of the election, and we'll move forward. I'm very confident that the country's going to move forward with this, and we're going to deal with the problems of our nation. And I'm very confident that we're going to get together in a very bipartisan manner and deal with the issues that are plaguing so many Americans.
Okay, now one of the issues plaguing so many Americans is many Americans are suffering from an acute case of stupidity. Hopefully MSNBC put up the whole interview, because it didn't turn out too well for homeboy. I'm telling you right now. That's why I had to amend what I said earlier when I said she made a damn fool out of him. No, that was a pre-existing condition. He already has a pre-existing condition. Okay. And she just exposed it. All right. But we posted a link here. Watch this. Go ahead and watch this. And maybe on their YouTube channel or something, you have to see the full interview. Oh, it got worse. He just showed how ignorant he is. Former Trump aide won't explicitly say that Joe Biden is the president-elect. This was Jerron Smith. J-A-apostrophe-R-O-N, Jerron Smith, who's a former Trump aide. He's African American, given him the benefit of the doubt. I was sitting there watching this. I said, "Oh my God!" Now I wonder. Now he ain't speaking out about the Trump administration trying to disenfranchise African Americans. He's another one. He's not speaking out against this. He's not denouncing this. All right. All right. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Also, hey, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network. $ the AHN Show through Cash App. $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. And also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you want to set up a recurring monthly donation, you can if you want to. Also, and then all my DVD lectures are available there as well. We have the Black Migration 1619, the 2019 6 DVD bundle pack. And I do a lot of history there. We deal with the 400th year anniversary of August 20th, 1619. We deal with the history of the Black migration, the Great Migrations, things like that. That bundle pack also includes my lecture, 6 Principles of Political Self-Defense, 6 Principles of Political Self-Defense, understanding how laws and policies impact the economic conditions of African Americans. That's also in that 6 DVD bundle pack as well. Black Migrations 1619 to 2019. We have that in digital download format also. Let's see here. Okay, so that's all available at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, I want to go to there was a history article from EJI.gov, Equal Justice Initiative. I want to go to that next. That's dealing with November 15th, 1830. November 15th, 1830. Also, we have the 8 DVD bundle pack, The Africans Who Were Here Before Columbus, The Africans Who Were Here Before Columbus as well. And it includes a double lecture that I did with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. It includes a double lecture I did with Professor Kabahai Walter Kamene, and includes one from Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, dealing with They Came Before Columbus, and also one from Dr. John Henry Clark and some other lectures as well. That's on sale, $50. It's I think it's an 8 DVD bundle pack, The Africans Who Were Here Before Columbus. All right. So we want to go to this history segment here. November 15th, 1830, North Carolina Legislature mandates death sentence for repeated dissemination of anti-slavery pamphlet. North Carolina Legislature mandates death sentence for repeated dissemination of anti-slavery pamphlet. On November 15th, 1830, North Carolina passed 2 laws designed to limit the influence of an anti-slavery pamphlet and discourage its dissemination, mandating the punishment of death for those who twice violated the law. Now, this is 1830. Civil War is not going to start for another 31 years. Chattel slavery doesn't end till 35 years after this, in 1865. About a year earlier, in September 1829, David Walker, a free African-American abolitionist and activist living in Boston, Massachusetts, published his what's known as David Walker's Appeal. It was called An Appeal to the Colored Citizens of the World. An Appeal to the Colored Citizens of the World. Okay. Yes, the term colored was used back in 1830, just like the term Afro-American was used back at this time as well. Okay. Now, the anti-slavery pamphlet, because the term Afro-American goes back to the 1830s. And then we look at 1898, you had the Afro-American League, which was one of the first civil rights organizations, the Afro-American League. And around 1892, you had the Afro-American Council, 1898. 1892, you have like the Afro-American League. So the term Afro-American goes back to the 1830s. It gets, there's a resurgence of it, or it resurfaces, becomes popular again in the 1960s, but it didn't start in the 1960s. And the term African American had a resurgence in the 1960s, but it didn't start then. The term African American, first recorded usage of the term African American goes back to May, right about 1782 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. New York Times has a article dealing with this. The term African American is older than we thought. And March 29th, 1964, in Washington Heights, New York, when Malcolm delivers the Ballad of the Bullet, 3 days after meeting Dr. King on March 26, 1964, at the U.S. Senate debate over the Civil Rights Act of 64. But March 29th, 1964, in the Ballad or the Bullet, Malcolm X uses the term African American. So people have to study this history. A lot of people think that Jesse Jackson created the term African American. No, he didn't. It's just false. He popularized the term African American. He didn't create the term African American. No, not at all. I think this is it here.
African Americans, or so-called Negro. One of the reasons that it is bad for us to continue to just refer to ourselves as so-called Negro, that's negative. When we say so-called Negro, that's pointing out what we aren't, but it isn't telling us what we are. We are African, and we happen to be in America. We're not American. We are people who formerly were Africans who were kidnapped and brought to America. Our forefathers weren't the Pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us. We were brought here against our will. We were not brought here to be made citizens. We were not brought here to enjoy the constitutional gifts that they speak so beautifully about today. And because we weren't brought here to be made citizens today, now that we've become awakened to some degree and we begin to ask for those things which they say are supposedly for Americans, they look upon us with hostility and unfriendliness. So our unwanted presence, the fact that we are unwanted, is becoming magnified in all of America's preachments today.
Okay, so that is that's an excerpt of the Ballad of the Bullet from March 29th, 1964 in Washington Heights, New York. A lot of people talk about the Ballad of the Bullet, but don't really understand the speech. You have to read the speech. You can't just listen to it. You have to read Malcolm's speeches. He delivered the Ballad of the Bullet 3 times that I know of. March 29th, 1964 in Washington Heights, New York. April 3rd, 1964 in Cleveland, Ohio. And April 4th, 1964 in Detroit, Michigan at the historic King Solomon Baptist Church here in Detroit. You have to read the Ballad of the Bullet in his speeches in general, especially when he leads the Nation of Islam, because that speech was given after he officially separated from the Nation of Islam. He officially separated from the Nation of Islam March 8th, 1964. He meets Dr. King for the first and only time March 26, 1964 at the U.S. Senate debate for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He delivers that speech March 29th. He leaves for Mecca late April 64. So Malcolm's most crucial speeches are going to be when he leads the Nation of Islam. One, because he can speak for himself. One, Two, his ideology is evolving and he's getting involved in the civil rights movement. So March 26, 1964, when he meets Dr. King, they only meet for a couple of minutes. He tells Dr. King, I'm throwing all of my effort into the heart of the civil rights movement, because Malcolm joins the civil rights movement when he leads the Nation of Islam. And even when he was in the nation, he felt that the nation should get involved in the civil rights movement. But Malcolm, July 31st, 1963, Malcolm sent a letter to the leading civil rights leaders, including Dr. King, requesting a meeting with the civil rights leaders. And he said, we have to find a common solution to a common problem posed by a common enemy. Malcolm was calling for a unification of the civil rights leaders and their followers. There's a article from Washington Post that deals with the day Dr. King met Malcolm X, the day Malcolm X met Dr. King, from Washington Post. And it breaks down this history. And it talks about Malcolm sending a letter to the civil rights leaders, and none of them showed up to the meeting. And it was he sent it July 31st, 1963, a month before the March on Washington. The March on Washington was August 28th, 1963, the month after. So it's important to understand this chronology of history. I've got my book, Malcolm X Speaks, around here somewhere. But yeah, you have to read Malcolm's speeches, and then read his speech from June 28th, 1964, when he lays out the platform of the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Okay, because he lays out the platform of the OAAU, the OAAU, the Organization of Afro-American Unity. He lays out the platform. He lays out an economic platform. He lays out a political platform. He talks about the need for voter registration, not necessarily joining a political party, but understanding voting strategically and the role that politics plays and the role that voting plays. Okay, the speech he delivered June 28th, 1964, that's a deep speech. If you go to blackpast.org, which is there are about 6,000 pages of articles dealing with African-American history and African history. If you go there, you can read that speech from June 28th, 1964. This is when he talks about we assert our right to be a man, to be treated like a man, in this society, on this earth, on this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary. That excerpt, that famous quote from Malcolm, that's from that speech, June 28th, 1964, where he lays out the platform of the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Let's see here. So read this article here from the Washington Post. Martin Luther King Jr. met Malcolm X just once. The photo still haunts us with what was lost. Martin Luther King Jr. met Malcolm X just once. The photo still haunts us with what was lost. This is from Washington Post. You may need a subscription to read it. I don't know, but they may let you. This is by Deneen L. Brown. Deneen L. Brown. This is a really, really extensive article. And let me see here. Let's turn on the screen share for a minute. Because I hear people talking about the Battle of the Bullet. I can tell they haven't studied it and don't understand Malcolm, really haven't studied history. And you should also read the book, Martin, Malcolm in America, A Dream or a Nightmare. Martin, Malcolm in America, A Dream or a Nightmare, right here. This book right here, because this book by James H. Combe, this book breaks down how Dr. King and Malcolm X's ideologies were converging toward the end of both of their lives. The ideologies are converging, and Dr. King sound like Malcolm, Malcolm sound like Dr. King. But this lays all that out in this book here, Martin, Malcolm in America, A Dream or a Nightmare. I got this back in college. I got this January 1994. Okay, that's when I read this book. This book is deep. That's by James H. Combe. let's see here. Yeah, Alveda King is an idiot. Alveda King doesn't get much respect in the African American community. We already know she's an idiot. Yeah, Martin Malcolm in America, a dream or a nightmare. Let's look quickly here at this article. Martin Luther King Jr. met Malcolm X just once. The photo still haunts us with what was lost. Okay, what is this? All right. They only met for a couple of minutes. Okay. Let's see. This was at the U.S. Senate debate for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It was March 26, 1964. He said, I'm throwing, okay, cameras clicked as the two men walked down the Senate hall together. Malcolm said, I'm throwing myself into the heart of the civil rights struggle, Malcolm X told King. King would say later, he's very articulate, but I totally disagree with many of his political and philosophical views, at least insofar as I understand where he now stands. Now, February 24th, 1966, almost a year to the date that Malcolm is assassinated. He was assassinated February 21st, 1965. February 24th, 1966, Dr. King meets with Elijah Muhammad. Dr. King and Coretta Scott King go to Elijah Muhammad's house in Chicago. And he meets with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And if you go to NOI.org, National Nation of Islam website, they have information there about that meeting as well. So a lot of people don't know this. Let's see here. So yeah, Malcolm was calling for a unification of the civil rights leaders also. 8 months before that brief meeting, eight months before that brief meeting on Capitol Hill, Malcolm X sent a letter to Dr. King requesting a meeting. The letter was dated July 31st, 1963. The return address was Muhammad Mosque, number 7, 113 Lenox Avenue, New York, 26, New York. Malcolm X opened the letter with the greeting, "Dear Sir." He called for a united front against racial oppression in the country. Quote, "The present racial crisis in this country carries within it powerful destructive ingredients that may soon erupt into an uncontrollable explosion," Malcolm X wrote. Quote, "The seriousness of this situation demands that immediate steps must be taken to solve this crucial problem by those who have genuine concern before the racial powder keg explodes. A united front involving all Negro factions, elements, and their leaders is absolutely necessary," end quote. Malcolm X warned that a racial explosion is more destructive than a nuclear explosion, citing a recent meeting between President John F. Kennedy and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev. Malcolm said, quote, "Despite their tremendous ideological differences, it is a disgrace for Negro leaders not to be able to submerge our minor differences in order to seek a common solution to a common problem posed by a common enemy. To seek a common solution to a common problem posed by a common enemy." Malcolm X invited Dr. King to a rally that August 1963 in Harlem, New York, to analyze the race problem and solution. He promised to moderate the meeting and guarantee courtesy for each speaker. He requested that if Dr. King could not attend, to send a representative, closing the letter with an endearment, "Your brother Malcolm X." Dr. King declined the invitation and did not send a representative, according to the book Malcolm and the Cross, The Nation of Islam, Malcolm X and Christianity by Louis A. DeCaro Jr. Then we know August 28th, 1963, you have the March on Washington. All right, so check out this article here from, there's a deep article from Washington Post from Deneen L. Brown. She writes some really good articles. Martin Luther King Jr. met Malcolm X just once. The photo still haunts us of what was lost. Okay, so all the photos you see of Dr. King and Malcolm X together, that was March 26, 1964. Okay, that's when that took place. March 26, 1964. That's late in the same month that Malcolm officially separates from the Nation of Islam. And oh, here it is. Hold on. Malcolm X speaks. It was underneath Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, Dr. King's last book. Because we haven't studied Dr. King. Dr. King wrote 5 books himself. This is his last book. This is his most important book. Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. And then Malcolm X Speaks was under that book, and it was under this book here, The Deacons for Defense. This is the Armed Resistance and the Civil Rights Movement by Lance Hill. This is this is the only book I know of on the Deacons for Defense and Justice. Probably another one, but this is probably the best one. The Deacons for Defense, Armed Resistance and the Civil Rights Movement. Okay, and then this is Malcolm X Speaks. But this is, I mean, they still, I don't know if it's in print or out of print. The cover probably looks different. I got this in 1993 when I was in college. Okay, so Malcolm X Speaks, Malcolm X Speaks, Selected Speeches and Statements, edited with prefatory notes by George Brightman. Yeah, so this is edited by George Brightman. And the Battle of the Bullet is in here. Page, but see, you have to understand history, like to really understand the Battle of the Bullet. This is the version of the speech he gave April 3rd, 1964 at Corey Methodist Church in Cleveland, Ohio, which is slightly different than the speech he gave March 29th, 1963 in March 29th, 1964 in Washington Heights, New York. Okay. Now the next day, April 4th, 64, he gives a speech in Detroit, Michigan, and exactly 1 year, and exactly 4 years after that date, Dr. King's assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, April 4th, 1968. But what people have to understand, so people say, oh, Malcolm said if you give your vote to a political party that doesn't put you first or doesn't deliver what you're asking for or what have you, something like that, you're a chump, or however they phrase it, right? One of the main things that Malcolm was talking about here was African Americans fighting for civil rights and fighting for the Civil Rights Act of 64 and it being blocked in the Senate because he went to go sit in on the debate in the Senate over the Civil Rights Act. Okay. Well, when people talk about that, now he's not saying he's not saying don't be a Democrat or Republican when you actually read the full speech. But what they don't say is that, well, in July of 64, the Civil Rights Act passed and was signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson. Because I can listen to what people say about this speech and tell how much they understand history. You can't look at these speeches as a snapshot in time. You have to understand the history that happened after the speech was given. And you have to understand the circumstances historically was taking place at this time that the speech was given. That's the context that the speech is given within. These speeches are not an isolated incident. They're dealing with what was taking place at that time in history, but you have to understand what happened after the speech as well, historically. So this is what, so when I hear people quoting from the Battle of the Bullet and things like this, they don't talk about what happened after he gave the speech. And then Malcolm was assassinated before the Voting Rights Act is signed. Voting Rights Act is not signed into law until August 65. Well, Malcolm was assassinated February 21st, 1965. He didn't even see that coming to fruition. Page 26, he says, it means that when white people are evenly divided and black people have a block of votes of their own, it's left up to them to determine who's going to sit in the White House and who's going to be in the doghouse. Then he says, he's talking, largely what he's talking about is Kennedy really had to be pushed to address issues dealing with civil rights. And he's talking about the Democrats ignoring it. And one of the themes of a few of the themes of the speech is, one, Malcolm is talking about interjecting black liberation into the civil rights movement. Very few people talk about that because they haven't actually read the speech. You can't listen to Malcolm's speeches. You have to read them to really understand what he's talking about. One of the themes of the Battle of the Bullet is, one, he's talking about interjecting black nationalism. I should say black nationalism, not black liberation, but black liberation also, but specifically black nationalism into the civil rights movement. One. Two, he's saying that the Northern Democrats, which tended to be more moderate and sometimes liberal, he's saying they should kick the Southern segregationist Dixiecrats or Southern segregationist Democrats out of the Democratic Party. That's another theme of the speech, but you have to read the speech to understand this, because you had the party realignment between the Democratic and Republican Party. People think that party realignment took place because of the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65. No. The party realignment is going to complete in mid to late 60s. That party realignment goes back to 1928 in the Lily White movement of 1928, when Republicans were trying to get Herbert Hoover elected in the 1928 presidential election. And they were ignoring the needs and concerns and issues of African Americans and the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. And they appealed to Southern segregationist Democrats in 5 former Confederate states, and they implemented a Southern strategy. And they got Herbert Hoover elected. And then African Americans were being pushed out of the Republican Party, and we slowly started going over to the Democratic Party. So the party realignment is that goes back to 1928. People don't study history. You can go to house.gov, which is the official website of the official website of the House of Representatives. Okay, you can go to house.gov, which is the official website of the House of Representatives, U.S. House of Representatives. They have a history section there. Search for party realignment. They have a whole history dealing with the party realignment that took place. Okay. So this is why you have to understand this history. Page 30, Malcolm says, I say again, I'm not anti-Democrat. I'm not anti-Republican. I'm not anti-anything. I'm just questioning their sincerity and some of the strategy that they've been using on our people by promising them promises that they don't intend to keep. When you keep the Democrats in power, you're keeping the Dixiecrats in power. I doubt that my good brother Louis Lomax will deny that. A vote for a Democrat is a vote for a Dixiecrat. That's why in 1964 it's time for you and me to become more politically mature and realize that the ballot is for, and realize what the ballot is for, and we're supposed to get when we cast the ballot, and what we're supposed to get when we cast the ballot, and that if we don't cast the ballot, is going to end up in a situation where we're going to have to cast a bullet. It's either a ballot or a bullet. In the North, they do it differently. They have a system that's known as gerrymandering. Whatever that means. It means when Negroes become too heavily concentrated in a certain area and begin to gain too much political power, the white man comes along and changes the district lines. So, but when he talks about getting what we what we're supposed to get and things like this, right? At this point in time, the main emphasis African Americans were pushing for was the Civil Rights Act of 64. Well, that came into fruition after this speech was given. It passes. It passes Congress. The Southern segregationist Democrats in the Senate had a filibuster. It wasn't all the Democrats. It wasn't the Northern Democrats. It was the Southern segregationist Democrats. They had a filibuster to block the bill. Okay. What pushes the Civil Rights Bill over the top and gets it passed in the Senate, June 21st, 1964, when Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney, the three civil rights workers, were killed in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Okay, that helped push the Civil Rights Act over the top and get it passed. Then it's signed into law in July 64 by President Johnson. Okay, so now keep in mind, Malcolm gave this speech. This speech is April 3rd, 64. He gave this speech about 7 days after attending the debate over the Civil Rights Act, because that's like one of the main things he's talking about in this speech. But if you don't understand this chronology of history, you really don't understand what's going on. And then you have to understand the history that happened after the speech was given also. All right. So check this book out. There are other books that have Malcolm speeches in it as well. This is one. It's not the only one. This is one. All right. Let's continue here. We were talking about this piece from Equal Justice Initiative, EJI.org. North Carolina Legislature mandates death sentence for repeated dissemination of anti-slavery pamphlet. Okay, this was November 15th, 1830. This took place. November 15th, 1830. Okay, so the pamphlet was quickly clandestinely circulated among African Americans, and they're talking about David Walker's appeal. About a year earlier, in September 1829, David Walker, a free African American abolitionist and activist living in Boston, Massachusetts, published an appeal to the colored citizens of the world. The anti-slavery pamphlet advocated for racial equality and called for free and enslaved Black people to actively challenge injustice, racial oppression, and the institution of slavery. Okay, the anti-slavery pamphlet from David Walker, also known as David Walker's Appeal, advocated for racial equality and called for free and enslaved African Americans to actively challenge injustice, racial oppression, and the institution of slavery. Now, the appeal was the first published document to demand the immediate and uncompensated emancipation of enslaved African Americans. David Walker also indirectly targeted his pamphlet to white readers, urging them to cease their inhumane treatment of enslaved people. The pamphlet was quickly and clandestinely circulated among African Americans, especially in the South, inciting anger among many white people, and sometimes swift and harsh punishment. Okay, sometimes swift and harsh punishment. Jacob Cowan, C-O-W-A-N, Jacob Cowan, a literate enslaved African American man. Jacob Cowan he lived in North Carolina. he was sold downriver to Alabama after he was caught with 200 copies of this David Walker's appeal for distribution to other enslaved African Americans in the community. Okay, so he got caught with 200 copies of David Walker's appeal. He was going to distribute this to enslaved African Americans in the community. Copies of the pamphlet found by Southern officials were destroyed. The state of Georgia offered a bounty for David Walker's capture, and several states like North Carolina eventually passed laws to further oppress enslaved African Americans and free African Americans also. Titled "An Act to Prevent the Circulation of Seditious Publications," North Carolina's first law banned bringing into the state any publication with the tendency to inspire revolution or resistance among enslaved or free African Americans. A first violation of the law was punishable by whipping and 1 year imprisonment, while those convicted of a second offense would, quote, suffer death without benefit of clergy, end quote. So you don't get any last rites. So you don't get clergy to pray for you. So in North Carolina, November 15th, 1830, they passed a law that the second offense, if you got caught with abolitionist material, anti-slavery material, you could be put to death. This is up north, North Carolina. Now, the second law forbade all persons in the state from teaching the enslaved Africans to read and write. A white person convicted of violating the law would be subjected to a $100 to a $200 fine or imprisonment. A fine between $100 to $200 or imprisonment. A free African American would face a fine, imprisonment, or between 20 and 39 lashes, and an enslaved African American convicted of teaching other enslaved Africans to read or write will receive 39 lashes. Okay, check this out from EJI.org, Equal Justice Initiative. North Carolina Legislature mandates death sentence for repeated dissemination of anti-slavery pamphlet. That took place November 15th, 1830 in North Carolina. So check that out. All right. And research David Walker as well, and David Walker's appeal also. All right. And, so that's some deep history. Why we have trolls that keep coming on here, I guess they don't have anything better to do. But I have trolls in different area codes. So, it is what it is. All right. Hey, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show, and also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Click on the yellow donate button as well. And let's see, the article from EJI.org, we'll post it again on our Facebook fan page, but we posted the link here. But it's called North Carolina Legislature Mandates Death Sentence for Repeated Dissemination of Anti-Slavery Pamphlet. How you doing, Bella? Okay, Bella Bishop. Let's see here. Fly Girl. Just a few of the people watching us. All right, follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Turn on notifications so you know when we go live. We're here Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time, The African History Network show. And then Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time also. And we're in audio podcast format. I just uploaded some audio podcasts today. We're in audio podcast format. So wherever you get your podcast from, search for the African History Network show. And then we're on iHeartRadio. Download the iHeartRadio app. You can listen there as well. Search for the African History Network show. But you can also, if you go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, click on listen to podcasts. It takes you to our Blog Talk Radio page. blogtalkradio.com/the African History Network show, and all our podcasts going back 10 years are there as well. All right. Email us at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. African American business owners will let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. All right. We have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow.